give a warm, delightful welcome to our keynote speaker, Dave Wieneke.
Good morning, delight. I'm getting away from that. I'm Dave Wieneke, the axe-wielding Director of Strategy at Eyesight. Welcome to a bigger, better delight than ever, and I want to explain to you why this is Take Your Axe to Work Day. It's Take Your Axe to Work Day because the axe is an absolute instrument of unabashed change. When you use an axe, it's got the little leather house on. You can talk about it when the house is on. When you take the house off, you're ready to do something. And my hope is you've come here with a project, with a hope, with something that you want to do, because this is the tribe of people who are doing things in customer experience. This is a tribe that makes unabashed change. And while delight is kind of this unicorn, wonderful thing that happens at the end of the process, there is a lot of commitment. You know, axes, there is no dipping the toe in setting. The axe is an all or nothing kind of commitment. So we're going to talk about some great experiences and things that we've done in customer design, but we also know that behind this there is axe wielding and real change that happens, because everyone here is a designer. We're all making uncertain changes in the future, and we're wielding the axe. And this is kind of the day where we talk to people who've made huge changes, and we get leverage to make some of those ourselves. So, you're a designer. Anyone who's making changes in the world that are uncertain changes is using design thinking. And change makers are people who use design. So, let's talk about that for a minute. We're in a world that has changed so much just in the last decade. This is a business environment where everyday strangers are creating really our brands on every level, where advertising actually pushes people away as much as it brings them together, and where products have fewer features and deliver more value. So it's kind of a reverse world, and it's a world that opens us up for new service models and really having a whole new approach to how we go at design. So here's where we're going today. We have 3 Ds. The first, and these are all decisions that we make, and these are things that are going to frame our day up. The first is differentiating where it matters most to customers. The second is designing for empowered customers. And the third is designing what I call MVP. It's the minimal viable personality of a brand. Sometimes in engineering, MVP is a minimal viable product, but in the case of delight, in the case of experience, the stuff we make is not just functional stuff. It's stuff that actually has a texture and has a personality of its own. Now later today, we'll be having a discussion about optimization and customer experience journeys, and we'll be talking a little bit about how to get things done. But increasingly, brands need to be personal. And brands need to stand for things. They need to become active in their own arresting. So what we're going to talk about for the next 25 minutes or so are some great things that brands have done, and some rubrics that we've used talking with people and learned from talking with them that may be useful in you in thinking about some of the changes that you need to make. You know, there's a yellow line in the middle of the road for a reason. You can be on one side or the other. But the danger zone is in the middle. And there's a real premium for deciding where brands are going to stand in the marketplace. Jim Stengel is the most recent global marketing officer at Procter & Gamble. And he did some interesting research over the last 2 years. He looked at thousands of companies and surveyed people which ones stand for an ideal. What brands actually stand for. And what he found is the top 50 of those brands, who people said, that's a brand that means something to me, that's a brand that has an ideal that they share with me, outperformed the S&P by 4 times. Now, that's not saying people who like brands, that those companies do better than companies with customers who hate them. There's no news in that. What that's saying is that companies that have something in common with the people who pay the bills, with the people who are actually their embodiment, their committed fans, are the ones that do best. Let me give you some examples. Zara, democratizing fashion trends, versus Zappos, delivering happiness through wow service. What these are is these are points of commonality, not saying we're going to be the biggest, we're going to be the best, we're going to have the highest net promoter score. Customers don't care about that. What these are is that these are brands who've stood up and decided that they're going to stand for something. There are three tests for a great brand ideal. One is, does it create a bond with the customer? Let me point one out. BlackBerry, down on the bottom here, connect people with their most important content anywhere, anytime. That's a great ideal. But do you think BlackBerry made good on that? Now, that was a map, and they did a great thing by putting that map out. If they'd been true to that map, there might be a very different company there than there is today. Samsung, inspire imagination and enrich lives as part of a world of limitless possibilities. When you go through the airport to find those charging stations, that actually makes sense to the brand promise that's being shared. Now, there's a usefulness in having that. It explains to customers who you are. There are two core questions that this approach challenges companies to answer. And that is, from a customer standpoint, who are you and why are you here? Just something saying we're going to have a great net promoter score or we're going to be the leader in our sector means nothing to a customer. And this bond that's shared between this is our mission, this is our promise, and is put forward actually becomes a frame for where are we going to innovate to. It also becomes a way of thinking about what flavor of delight your company is about. So looking across this chart here, you've got people that are brands that are focused on eliciting happiness, creating connection, curiosity, esteem, making social good. They become organizing principles so that Johnny Walker, which is one type of beverage, is about celebration and recognition of progress, while Jack Daniels, a competitor, is about an authentic lifestyle. JD, probably not so much of a gift. Johnny Walker, kind of competing with Cross Penn in that construction. And that becomes important because those are maps of how those brands can innovate and what they can become. We live in a time where we're either revolutionizing or being commoditized. And these become frames that tell us where we can go and still make sense to the consumers that matter to us. And it's kind of a framing decision. Before you can decide you're going to be delighting consumers, you have to explain to them who you are and what's in it for them. There's also a huge premium for doing something different. Think about growing lumber. If you grow lumber, everyone in the industry has the same basic sets of rules. They have the same constraints, they have the same economics, probably the same metrics. Companies that compete on product and features are like lumber companies that try to compete on growing trees. Assuming that everyone has the same marketplace, that everyone has similar bases of talent, IBM looked at 4,000 companies, and the ones that compete on product have some advantage on their compound annual growth rate, but it's relatively small. So when you look across the competitive set, everyone does that. It's not a lot of advantage. People who try to drop price actually get a lower rate of growth than companies that compete on feature. Competing on features is hard. You need engineering, you need creativity. Dropping price, that's even easier to do, and everyone can do that. But what they found was that companies that used technology and changed business models and changed culture to do something different than what the marketplace had seen had huge, considerably more compound annual growth rate over 5 years. There's a premium for bold decision. There's a premium for standing out. There's a premium for mattering to customers. I can't believe I'm going to quote Francis Bacon. But, brands have to be active in their own rescue. They need to be rescued from irrelevance. In my work, I work with Thomson Financial, and Thomson is basically a holding company. It was a big shroud, and all day as a marketer, my job was to try to figure out ways to personalize that brand and push people out in front of the brand stage rather than have them obscured by a brand. If we don't do new things, someone else will. And a lot of times, those large brands that aren't innovating, they're maybe investing in business models that are still okay, but they're on the decline. It's so hard to go and do something unproven. And it's so easy just to double down on something that has diminishing returns. So we're going to talk about departures, and the big departure is our customers. Our customers and our markets actually need us, and we can either be their peers or we can be abandoned. Customers that give a damn are the absolute greatest resource and the persistent advantage of business. Having customers that care. So this is some research from McKinsey that I want to share. Something I've shared with a couple of clients who are in the room. It looks at the different touch points in 5 industries' consideration processes. So across the bottom, we have initial consideration, active evaluation, and closure. And the company-driven marketing comprises a very little subset of all the touch points that happen in the consideration process. And as you get closer and closer to closing the deal, what the company says matters less and less. Past experience, also a bit more on the front end, and that matters less and less. What consumers say about the company actually becomes more and more important. And what the dealer network says is especially important at the close because that's where business happens. So one takeaway is we're not who we say we are. Literally, looking at companies in Japan, in Germany, in the US, less than a third of the touch points that establish who a company is are actually managed by the company. It's kind of a saw to say we're not who we say we are, but it creates a significant challenge for marketers. It's the challenge of shifting between saying and doing. And when we talk about customer experience, that's the doing part. We're experience makers. And it's not just that we're making an experience that explains the company. We're making an experience that invites our customers in. It's the difference between storytelling and story living. We want our customers to come into our brands. So let me share a few examples. I'm going to play a video here in a moment. This is from Dove, and each of these are ways that customers have taken over content for different companies. And to tell you, this will explain itself. If we can go ahead and click it, Kate, that'd be great. I'm not hearing any sound. So let me provide a voiceover while that's okay. Dove has a commitment, and you can see what their ideal is at the bottom of the screen.
Creative company, ad maker. Okay.
Thank you.
Muffin top, jelly rolls, need a bigger bust. Messages like these taunt you, prey on your insecurities, and make you feel bad. In fact, Dove discovered that only 4% of women believe that they're beautiful, a statistic so disturbingly low, we decided to do something about it. Dove created the Ad Makeover, a Facebook application that lets you replace those feel bad ads with messages designed to make women feel good instead. Here's how it works. Select a message. Choose who you want to send it to. Then send your message to millions of women. Your message takes the place of ones designed to make women feel bad and helps them feel beautiful instead. Join us on our mission to make more women feel beautiful.
This is the first time I've ever seen customers being empowered to take over a company's ad spend on Facebook. They actually created a tool that said, if you don't like ads that denigrate women's bodies. You pick the ad you want us to compete against, and we'll use our ad spend to say the positive message that you want to put forward instead of that. They actually gave their consumers metrics at the end of that, showing what difference they had made by using Dove's ad spend. We're in a world where customers are taking over ad spend. At Adobe, we're in a world where customers are taking over documentation and support. In many parts of Adobe, what had been called the technical writer is now a community manager. And 80% of documentation is being created by end users, not by the company. So it used to be that when you'd launch a product, there would be hundreds and hundreds of articles written up as part of the product launch. And it's put forward, this is the manual, this is how you use the product. Now the design has been improved so much that there are some instructions, but they write the documentation after the fact. And users and MVPs and members of the community that are Adobe's expert users write the content. And the technical writers actually spend a half day a week doing analytics, looking at what content is being used. And then they spend the rest of the week finding people who will write the kind of content that's most needed on their sites. They also have a network of MVPs, so if you need advice or if you need support, you can call Adobe, or you can call a network of people who are ready to provide assistance. Paul Williams shared a quote with me from Mohan Nair, and he said that technology alone doesn't disrupt, and business model alone doesn't disrupt. Technology makes changes in business models happen. But the two of those with culture is what changes things. Adobe used technology, and they used a new model. But really what they've done is they've introduced a culture, which is Adobe users do things together. And if you do things with other Adobe users and you help them, you'll be recognized and you'll have status in this community. It's a different kind of business model, and it changes their content. It's not what the company says about their products. It's what the users write for documentation themselves. GPS Pal from Columbia is a project that we've been privileged to be part of. And you can see the Columbia ideal is authentic, high-value outdoor products for active consumers. So GPS Pal is a way for Columbia to join consumers out in the field and to sometimes have this mobile application go out in the field along with some of their great outerwear. They can log adventures, they can track and annotate their trips, and then they can share them out socially. The customers are creating the tribe. This, again, is a content play, but it's not a company saying things about themselves. It's the customers saying things that are relevant about using the products and being in nature and creating a community. It's also important to note, I think that mobile is still underestimated in how personal this medium is. This is a device that's carried with you everywhere. This, out in the mountains with you, that people use to post up information. And increasingly, the design metaphor that we grew up on, that of the page, has really been blown apart and has been replaced by the application flow. What we're looking at here is an application experience, and really across CMSs, across marketing automation systems, the page is kind of a vestige. What's emerged is an application that delivers an experience. So let's talk briefly about technology. We said that technology itself doesn't drive innovation. But what's interesting is technology is a major focus of customer experience shifts. iSight's a member of the Forrester analyst community, and they've organized a pretty large part of their practice around the idea of customer experience. And we had a chance to talk with Ron Rogowski earlier this week, and he and some of his colleagues have done a survey of customer experience professionals around where their initiatives are. And what's interesting on this chart is there's a huge consolidation of customer experience initiatives around digital. And there's probably some good reasons for that. First, I've made reference to mobile. Mobile really is changing a lot of the customer models and that personal connection. Consider Lowe's. Lowe's has decided that they want to meet their consumers as peers in the store aisle. So they've purchased 140,000 iPhones. They've equipped them with inventory information. They've equipped them with ways that they can look at deals from other stores. And when you talk to a Lowe's service person with one of these iPhones, they're just as equipped to talk about your shopping as you are, if you as a consumer show up with a phone. Today, I think the best we can aspire to be with these empowered consumers is to aspire to be the customer's peer, to be as equipped as the customer, to be personable, to provide them something of use. The brand relationship where consumers follow brands really has gone away. And we're challenged to integrate these multiple streams of communication. You know, imagine you get out your iPhone and you make a phone call and you talk to support in a company. And then you send an email using the same iPhone and you get a response back from sales. You use the application and you see something from the product team. And you go to the web page and you see something from marketing. Well, it's all coming over one device now. It better be consistent. It better be the same message and the same value and the same commitment to the customer, whether it's support or sales or marketing. I think also increasingly no progress is non-digital. Call centers, huge digital content component. They need to be just as integrated. So a lot of times in the internet, we focus on things in digital marketing up on the top here, the different channels. Search and web and social and mobile apps. They're the channels, and sometimes it feels like a splinter net. There's just more and more and more, and it's hard to know where to focus. These green boxes at the bottom, particularly the brand, and particularly the business plan, really frame up what companies should be taking on. And one of the things that we do working with our clients is we talk about where to heavy in and take the right shot. Activity isn't what gets rewarded by the marketplace. Fantastic delight, standing out for doing something that matters, is really what sets us apart. So I want to share an idea called MIST, which is one of the ways that brands can set themselves apart and develop a texture that means something beyond just the offer of a product to a consumer. So MIST stands for mystery, intimacy, sensuality, and trust. I'm going to walk through some examples of MIST. And I also want to share this idea that delight really is consumers finding new potential inside of brands that they know or that they've met. So all of these things have to be in line with those values that the company has staked out. You can't just be mysterious and wonderful and delightful on something irrelevant. It has to be tied back to the shared goal that companies have with their consumers. Now I'm guessing no one here has anyone ever seen Building 19? Building 19 is a liquidation company in Massachusetts. Their motto is good stuff cheap, and kind of their tagline over here on the right is suffer a little, save a lot. They sell things for about 1/3 the price when you buy them at retail, and their value, their promise to customers, is cheapness. And you can see that in the design ethic. And I think as people who talk about customer experience, so often we talk about Tiffany and Zappos and Apple, and it's fair to ask, is customer experience just a stand-in for high production values? Spending more, making it prettier. And I think this is a great example of this company is right on brand. Everything they do, from their stores to their ads, is intentionally cheap. And you can buy a $10 tent from them. You can buy a $30 piece of carpet from them. They're an amazingly cheap company, and that's the delight that they bring. It's so different from Walmart. Walmart also talks about value, but think how different the design ethic is here. Maybe another better example is the Blush Box. Anyone familiar with Blush Box? Few hands go up. The Blush Box delivers tasteful, luxurious, adult gifts. Massage oil, lingerie. I'm not sure what's in the Blush Box because they don't tell you on the website. The Blush Box itself is a mystery. So Building 19's mystery is no one knows how they get their stuff so cheap. There's lots of dealing that happens. It's a surprise. There's no telling what's in the store. You show up and you find surprises. The blush box, same idea. You don't exactly know what's in there, but once you're subscribing, things just magically start showing up, and they're delightful surprises. This is someone I met at Nordstrom. I'm going to shift to intimacy here. David saw me looking at shirts in Nordstrom, and I didn't buy a shirt that day. And he said, sometimes we have sales. If you like, give me your Twitter account, and I'll get in touch with you. And I kind of thought, okay, I'll give him a Twitter account, but I'm probably going to get some kind of corporate spam. And that's not what happened that day. He sent me a little personal note of, great meeting you. I'm going to be watching for this type of shirt that you want. A week or two later, I get a DM letting me know that he's got the shirt. I come into the store. He set it aside to my size. Now, could you imagine me pulling out red laser and doing comparison shopping in that situation? I just had a human who cared about me, pulled aside something I wanted, and helped me get a great deal. So, in this case, the hero isn't Twitter or the technology tool. The hero is the personal relationship that Twitter just was able to be casual. And I will hear from the Nordstrom lab later today, but I think that this guy is just a wonderful Twitter insurgent. I said, wow, I didn't know that Nordstrom was tied into communicating to customers that way. John Deere is changing its relationship to people who own its gear. You don't get a better business-to-business company than John Deere. And for 15 years, they've created devices that can phone back to the distributor and tell them what their status is, tell them if they need to be repaired. But this year, they launched a global network. So all of their tractors can have telemetry and feedback come back to their owners, come back to the dealers so they can be fixed, and come back to the factory so the people who make them actually know exactly how, for the first time, their gear is getting used. In mobile, sometimes we talk about geofencing, which is you take your mobile device and you only get a certain ad in a certain area. John Deere is geofencing for people who own their gear. And you can set the tractor that says, if it's not in my field, don't make the engine run. So there's a whole new relationship between the manufacturer, the owner, and the customer who has great data. Finally, sensuality. This is Cali. I don't know if you've ever gone to Cali. If you walk out the front door and go to the right, you'll see this little Japanese restaurant. And it's got a pot that sits out in front of it with the food that you'll get inside there. Two choices. And you walk by and you smell the food. And then you see some charts explaining that the food's healthy. There are press clips, and there's hours, and there's better business membership, and there's music from the store. It's like they've made a little analog website with good smells. And what's interesting is Makoto, who's the manager there, explained, doing all of this doesn't make sales, but it gives me something that I can talk to people about once they've stopped. So he's figured out that that's a trigger point. It's just like digital marketing, except he's able to use all of his senses to get people to stop, and then he says, would you like to try the food? Now, I don't know if this innovation, 2 products, you can smell the food out front, is going to work or not. But what's interesting is people notice this place. It's different and it's marketed differently. And it's not based on the technology. It's just based on the idea of wouldn't it be great if we could show people our food? Finally, trust. This is Kane Monroy. And you probably know about Kane's Arcade. Is that a pretty well-known story in this room? I won't retell the story. A 9-year-old boy stuck in his father's, kind of down on his heels, auto part shop, has very few resources except boxes. And he makes some barely working simulations of arcade games using these boxes. And, there's not a better example of agile development than a kid that's, making up working boxes. And what happened? The filmmaker came into the store. There's his first customer at the arcade. You could buy 4 plays for $1 or 200 plays for $2. And Nirvana bought the 200 plays. What's interesting in this story isn't that it's an online success story of a boy who has had his life changed by creativity. It's the way the story has gone back and forth between online and offline. So he built an arcade. Nirvan came in and said, "You've never had a customer." And he talked to his dad, said, "Would it be okay if I put something up on Facebook? I bet I could get some people to come and give this a try." 2 days later, they had 300,000 followers from Reddit. A week later, they swamped the store with a surprise party for this little boy, and Nirvan filmed it. He then went back online and put it up on YouTube. 1.5 million views later, Kane, a 9-year-old boy, is on tour to children's museums with his boxes of arcade, and other kids are coming to show him what they've made out of boxes too. Then he starts a foundation with Nirvan to inspire other kids to build and be creative. And around the world, in one day, they had 260 events in 38 countries. Now, if Nirvan had just shot this video and put it on YouTube, would it have worked? I think almost absolutely not. It's this idea of going back and forth, of mixing the online world to the offline world, community back to content. It built a kind of credibility. If you think of Joseph Kony, it's a movement that lost a lot of credibility. It was purely online. So let's wind this up. We will do a workshop, rather than doing it here today, using these missed ideas with some brands of people who are here today. It's a follow-up webinar, and you can expect an email from Eyesight Design to delight people about that. So, we live in a world where we say less about the brand and we let other people live in the brand and do more. We invite participation. It's what our raving fans expect. We share ideas and we put our people out in front of the brands. In the case of mobile, we need to go mobile like the next business model depends on it. And ideas like Mist, personalized brands. And on a personal note, we need to indulge dreams and live the life ourselves. So, who's the brand hero? Maybe it's the magician who's the great physician, or the scientist who explains chemistry, or the guy who can help you get good stuff cheap in Building 19. Maybe it's the customers who come to you and use your services to complete the quest that they're on. But behind the scenes, it's you people. If you're daring to differentiate on experience, you're changing businesses. You're making change. So back to the axe. All mankind should love each other, but when visiting your brother, take along your axe and swing it fast. For not in theory, but in practice, delight gets wrought with axes. And thanks to what you do, the age of delight is not past. Thank you, and have a great delight.